Sometimes in life you face situations where it seems like they take off the air to breath. Just like when you take an aircraft, you need to go to the other side to make a recording for your first, second or third album, and they don't let you take the violin with you. What would you do in this situation? Stay tuned and I tell you. Hello back again. Today here, Edgar from Cremona has a nice subject. You know, we make great instruments here. My last one, the Cremonese, a really nice violin. I would say it's better than the original. But this is really tough. I shouldn't say that. No, but it's really turned out really great. It really sounds great. And a musician will make his living with this violin, yeah? And then you just have success. You have your career going on, and they invite you from Sony Music to record an album in Berlin, you know. You take the violin, you organize everything, you still don't have all the money you will earn with this album, right? So you try to save and go with Ryanair. And then you travel for the whole time you were a student, you travel like this, always with the violin, no problem. And then I read you the post from Ester Abrami. Now, she is French, from Aix-en-Provence, and she plays an original Jean-Baptiste Violin, but I cannot pronounce her name. I'm not very good in French. Sorry, Esther. But your story really touches my heart. When I saw that one, I said, well, this is a sparkling subject. You know, I have to tell my friends here. So they're prepared in case they happen in the same situation. I think it happened to her in September or something this year. I was refused boarding on a Ryanair flight with my 200-year-old violin today. She must have been really yeah. I said, hey, I need to make a Instagram post to cool down because then I arrive and I have to make my best recording of my life. On my way to Berlin to record my third album with Sony, this is the first time I have experienced such rudeness and public humiliation. Public humiliation. That's actually the point. We come back later on that. Just before boarding the flight, I was stopped and told I could not board with my violin. I offered to pay whether it costs to take it with me. They refused. I offered to buy an extra seat. They said the flight was closed already and I could not buy an extra seat anymore, despite the flight was not being full. But this is another problem with the aircraft, I understand. They said the only option was to check it with the luggages or just leave it at the airport. These are not well-educated people working with Ryanair. I explained the price and the fragility of the violin. Nothing. I packed them, explained it was recording this very same day for my album, telling that I had flown an incredible number of times with this company and never experienced this. I came to the point of where I even offered to take my violin out of the case, keeping its fabric protection and just carry it by hand and keeping it on my during the whole flight whilst they put the case in the cargo. It's actually a very great idea. I wouldn't have had that idea. They made me open my case on the floor, put the violin in the place to measure the suitcase, you know, these racks with the requirements for the cabin luggage, which I had paid for already, is a length of 55 centimeters. My violin measures 56 centimeters. It fitted diagonally and otherwise was 1 centimeter over. Even this was refused. Wow. They really didn't like Esther. I was spoken to like a piece of garbage, told to get out of their way if I wasn't going to check in the violin as I was just wasting their time. I felt so humiliated, held in my tears, trying not to break in front of all the people about to board the plane watching the scene. And yet I've still felt incredibly fortunate that I could book a last-minute ticket on another flight with another company on the same day. That's what I have just would have done as well. Not every musician can have this opportunity. Missing a flight often means losing a vital work opportunity, whether it's a gig, a recording session, or an important meeting. In an industry where every opportunity counts, such an incident can have a ripple effect, impacting reputation and future prospects. This is simply unacceptable. Now, I agree with everything. You got the picture of the situation. And since I experienced myself after a long trip, we were 4 people, we went to Korea, we made many flights from Europe to Frankfurt to, to Helsinki, from Helsinki to Incheon Airport, from Incheon to Jeju, from Jeju, I don't know where. We were traveling like crazy, 4 people of us, Busan back up to Incheon back. And when our very, very last flight of our entire trip, we were coming from Helsinki all the way down. There was one assistant at the very end at the gate who didn't want me to carry on my violin case with inside, I think, 2 or maybe 4 violins. Okay, it's too big and I accept it. I knew it is too big, but usually we always can fly with these violins since they are very light, just a little bit bulky. Yeah, the situation I experience is just like this musician Ester Abrami. It becomes not anymore a question of the airlines, but just a kind of personal fight between 2 people. Because one is the traveler who is used, usually in the past, airlines did everything to satisfy their passengers, whether it's the zoo customer of economy. I also love to fly economy because I prefer to spend less money on the flight ticket and then spend my money in nice restaurants on the other side. Nowadays, taking an aircraft is a little bit like taking a bus or just a public transportation. It's very common, and especially Ryanair is a flight company like other cheap, low-cost companies where they save money in order that they can let everybody fly everywhere as much as they can, even more than is actually good. Then if a professional needs to go from A to B to make a recording and there is an assistant who just makes it become a personal issue, it becomes more a bigger question that within this negotiation, these people have a block, and because all the future passengers are there watching the assistant, what is he going now to do now, or she, then it becomes a personal issue and they don't want to give up because otherwise they have to show strength and be very strict. And in my case, when I was in Helsinki, there was just a small, beautiful, blonde assistant, which just made it become something impossible. And in my situation, then there was at least the pilot who understood the situation and said, I will bring the case myself inside, and once we arrive on the other side, I will give the case to the passenger. And that was actually all it needed, you know. But if there is only one person, like in the case of Esther, there is nothing to do, and the only thing she could do is just change the airlines. So I believe that musicians nowadays still have to travel with a lot of luck. It's the travel lottery we always go through when we travel, and we always have to be prepared that they do not accept that we carry on our instruments. So as a violin maker, for me, it's pretty easy. I already loosen a little bit my pegs. I put already some indications where the bridge is so that when I arrive at the other side, I can speak pretty quick. But still, it's involved with many hours of sound adjusting to have the instruments sounding that well also on the other side when I arrive. Let's say I go to Shanghai, I go to the United States. It's always a problem, but it is somehow our trade which makes it possible. For musicians, this is a big problem, and it should be actually away from airlines that there is already a certain room for musical instruments where they can store them, that they pick it up at the gate, and even if it's a violin which is worth 200,000 or 300,000 euro, or maybe even more, that they have a system where somebody takes the responsibility, puts it into a cabinet which is with foam, where they can put the case, something like this. That would be the ideal case, I prefer not to fly with the cheapest airlines. Let's say I go to China. I love China, all fine. But Air China did the same thing with me once. They didn't let me bring a cello, even though I announced it before. And so then I just stored it in the car. And while I was away, the cello was in the car with him. So you could imagine how nice that was for me. And so now I don't travel with Air China anymore for that reason. But that doesn't mean that now Austrian Airlines, Lufthansa, or Finnair next time will not do the same thing or another. You tend to say that this is the airline, but all these low-cost airlines, I think, are pretty serious on being severe, so that all the ones around who are assisting this scene, which is a humiliation for the customer, understand that they should not dare to bring something 1 centimeter longer than indicated in their flight rules. Yeah. So after all, I cannot really give a good advice. It's the easiest thing is to make it look easy without being too hard in the negotiation. And then probably once you see it's impossible, then probably just make, as Ester, just make a step back and say, okay, another airlines. But if there is no another airline, then it really is a pain. I really felt this whole entire story something, wow, because it's something, if you travel with an aircraft, with your instruments, you know what we are talking about. If you're a professional musician and you need that instrument, it becomes even worse. I feel the problem, but there is no rule, and there are too little musicians that we could have a policy which says musicians are allowed to bring their musical instrument everywhere they travel, which would be logical because people who travel, what are they? Or only intellectual? Or how should they handle to get the instrument on the other side? Yeah? Leave your comment down below. I'm curious to read how you handle this situation. Ester, tell me when you come to Cremona, and then I can show you a few of my, or maybe I have a few, maybe I have one violin, so you can check it out. Huh? Would be nice to get to know you in person. Tell your friends, subscribe if you're not subscribed yet. You owe me that. Thank you very much. Push that button. See you next time, and tell your friends. Ciao, ciao.